Welcome back to Digital Insecurity. Wow, have we been putting a lot together for you? We've got Black Hat Conference going on right now in Las Vegas. We recently had the Secretary of State coalition come together, which is, of course, where you go in and you submit a piece of paper offering your opinion of who you want to be a leader of that particular organization. And then we have local groups that did a recall of the governor, a recall of the entire board of supervisors for the county. This is the only thing I keep imagining is this phenomenal game, whether you go to the local DNB or you go to a casino or wherever you got, they always have this game, and it's got a few coins in there. You know, it's never this full, but they've got a few, and you put one in the back and it kind of pushes forward and you're so close. They'll even hang on the edge and not quite drop. This is where we are, everybody. So again, this is Digital Insecurity. My name is Barbara. Today we're going to talk about a global tipping point. Hey, let the chips fall where they may. It's about time that we've got this turnaround and something to smile about. So let's just jump on into this. I went ahead and pulled up two videos. I'm not going to play the videos here, but this one says the biggest coin pusher jackpot ever. Look at that mass that they loaded in there. Now, can you imagine? I mean, just really imagine for a minute. When you go to a casino, we all know, hey, it's stacked against you, right? The house always wins. We know that, but sometimes it's fun just to put a few coins in and see what happens. Every once in a while, there's a pop. It doesn't outweigh the amount you paid for travel, food, clothing, housing, lodging, hotels, money you dropped in the other games before you got to this one. But you know, it's entertainment and people pick the directions they want to play it. But just imagine if instead of just sitting there as a machine and playing against a machine, somebody walks across the back of that machine and just lifts it just a little bit when you put your coin in. That little bit of a tilt is going to tip into your favor. Well, what if when the machine was made, the machine is actually the reverse and the back end is tipped just slightly backwards to make sure that when those coins get to the end, they just hang there. And it makes you know that just one more will push it over, and it antagonizes you. And maybe even magnets hold on to it. But it's angled just slightly. Well, what if for once in our lives, the angle is in our favor? We're at that point now. So I pulled up one more here. Now check this out. That entire tower is ready to fall in our favor. Not just a few, but the entire mass. Once the beginning comes, it'll all come flowing to us. There's an absolutely wonderful saying that I learned several decades ago now, and this was from Tony Robbins. We've all heard of Tony Robbins and his late night talks, but you know what? Whether we joke or not, he is a true leader in teaching us how to maintain our own mental strength, being a warrior in our own lives, and creating a life path for ourselves. Because we have truly learned, if nothing else, over the last year and a half, that if you don't have a plan for your life, don't worry about it. Somebody else certainly does. And that plan is not in your best interest. So what did I learn from Tony Robbins years ago? So wonderful saying. And I actually used to repeat it over and over again as I was running along the beaches in La Jolla and Del Mar. And Del Mar is actually where Tony had his castle, and his core business was started down in San Diego. And so as I would run up and down intellectually and intuitively, I would just tap into that core energy of leadership, true leadership, not the bullshit that we've witnessed over the last year and a half and the years pulling up to that, but I mean true leadership, where an individual stands up, selects individuals around them that may not have the same skill set and often do not, and raises them up even higher. That's what a leader does. So as I would run along the beach with my feet in the sand, and I would hear the waves crash up against the shore, I would just picture that flow of abundance coming to me. And I would just imagine the saying that I memorized, because as we're taught, whether it's scriptures in the Bible or poems or stories or lessons, it's so important to have them close to our heart and be able to recite them, because in times where we don't have a computer or a book or a resource, pulling them from our mind, our heart, is where we can keep them hidden and embedded into the soul of who we are. And the one that I learned years ago goes like this. As I close my eyes and I picture myself back on that beautiful beach, the emotions come back to me of the abundance. God's wealth is circulating in my life. It is God's wealth that flows to me in avalanches of abundance. As I am one with God, and as God is everything, all my dreams, desires, and goals are instantaneously met. And so it is. Thanks be to God. Can you feel the power of that? I suggest that you go back and write down that, put it in your heart, and memorize it. This is a shift of energy like nothing else. I am going to say it one more time for you. And just imagine, as I'm putting myself in it, that you're putting yourself in the massive amounts of abundance as the tipping point is starting to flow in our direction. And yes, the meek, not the weak, the shy, or the cowards, but the meek who stand strong in the Lord and know the vision of pulling us forward, shall and are inheriting the earth. So I'm going to say that one more time. As I close my eyes and I take a really deep breath all the way down to the core of who I am. And I imagine that I'm running on that beach, which to me is ultimate freedom. I can feel the sand in my toes. And I can hear the water coming up on the sand in one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. And I'm tying into that entire connection, that grid, that intuition that is leading this planet right now. Those who are speaking out and are being heard are tied into this grid. And I say, and please say it with me, God's wealth is circulating in my life. It is His wealth that flows to me in avalanches of abundance. As I am one with God, and as God is everything, all my dreams, desires, and goals are instantaneously met. And so it is. Thanks be to God. So as you walk through this day, I want you to walk through this day with a smile on your face, knowing that the field is getting leveled. There might even be one little finger on the backside tipping it in your direction, but at least it's not tipping the opposite way anymore. And as soon as it starts to flow, it's all going to start to flow. And we will be able to live once again in freedom, in peace, and enjoy the love of planet Earth. So let's move forward and look at some evidence of this. President's constitutional authority to conduct military exercises, actions. There was quite a bit that came out of this, as you recall, in December of 2020, just weeks before we hit that first week of the incident in 2021. So let's take a point. You know, there's many articles here. There's, of course, one that we already know not to trust down here at the bottom. And we've already learned what fact checks do for us. Not in our direction. But let's tip this again in our own direction. What is FAS.org? This is part of a federal acquisition service. Defense Primer, President's constitutional authority with regard to armed forces. The President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. And it goes on here if you want more information on that. This goes all the way back to Alexander Hamilton writing in the Federalist. Our history was created on a very, very strong foundation. The United States rose like a phoenix out of the ashes to create opportunity and a new frontier for those who wanted a different path. We're still on that path. Have there been those have infiltrated? Yes, and we've seen evidence of that. Have we seen the exact points in time? Yes, we've seen information to support that, documentation. The facts are there, but the facts don't step back from the ledge. That you and I, as human beings, can look all over this planet and see one truth. That it doesn't matter what culture you're speaking about. It doesn't matter what land you live on. You're going to find a father who wants the best for his family and puts a smile on his face when he thinks of his children. And you're going to find a mom who will do anything to protect her children because that love and family is core. And yet, look at today's society, the ripping apart of families, the core of who we are, the glue that holds society together. And they shall not win. We continue to stand strong, and we continue to have the backing of the president that we actually submitted pieces of paper for. Together, we are currently, now, today, rebuilding our nation. We are together, working together. You know what's amazing though? As I'm in a work situation because of our county and state choosing opportunities that are not supportive of our planet, I had the absolute amazing opportunity to find a different employment support where the cultures are supportive of families and where we work together. It's just beautiful the way that handed out, and I would have never gone that direction ever. And yet, with the beauty that I'm experiencing, I'm also in a situation where I am hearing from people all over the United States right now. And they will start by saying, I hope I don't offend you, when they know that I'm from California. And to that I respond, speak up and sing to the choir. Because the more people sing up, the more people use their voice, the more we're going to continue to wake up society. Because right now, as I talk to my loving brothers and sisters and neighbors around this nation, and I would say the same of the globe if I was reaching out at that level right now, but of the nation that I am having touch points with, the only individuals that are not awake, the only ones that I am finding are in my own state, because we have been lied to and have propaganda and manipulation for so many decades that we are those in the boiling pot and didn't even know it was happening. I myself went through years of, yes, I know the truth. My family educated me 4 decades ago on what was coming down the pike and what the manipulation was happening here. The truth about off-planet activities, the truth about our government, the truth that really underlies. And yet, by the time I got to college, I was on my own. I got wonderful classes in ethics and history and self-realization that was all based on bullshit. Call it what it is. It manipulated me, and even at that point put me into a point of doubting who I am at the core of who I am, Up to that point, I knew who I was. I knew my life purpose. I knew where I came from and I knew where I was going until I became educated. The propaganda, my friends, is thick. And in this state that I call home, it sticks to the boots. So I want to keep pointing us back to the greater nation and the greater world we live in. In a few more steps, I'm going to look at those tabs as well. But just know every day, the tipping point is here. It is now sliding in our direction. We have the support, and together we are rebuilding our nation. These words are very, very key because this doesn't say together we will win. This doesn't say on this core page introducing that together, hey, we can do this. This doesn't say grab up your arms and run forward. This doesn't say we're just at the start of a journey. The word there is rebuilding. My friends, the battle has already been won. The fight is rounding the corner on the end. We are rebuilding. The absolute horrors that have not been reported to the mainstream have mostly been burnt out, gone, done. We have been loved and honored and cherished for decades. Although we have been told what was going on and we either chose not to listen, or we did listen and we did nothing, or we stood up and we used our voice and we were silenced. We are all in this together. At one point, we saw our nation's leader removed from this planet in a motorcade at a parade while on TV for the entire nation to witness the coup. And that wasn't enough. We saw 2 entire towers come down in New York. And hey, by the way, another building just happened to drop in its footprint when the news had announced it before it even fell. And that wasn't enough. November brought an awareness as so many of us, like you and I, stayed up that night and we watched the tickers come in, the counting lodged, and we stood up and cheered and we knew who won. And yet in that very moment, we couldn't believe our eyes. As states like Florida, who had a clear leader, couldn't call it. And yet states like California, who hadn't even gotten in 50% of the pieces of paper back, called it right away. And yet states like Georgia were very clear who a decision had gone to, and Arizona very clear where the decision has gone to, and Pennsylvania very clear where the decision. And you know what? We actually watched with our own eyes that night as the numbers rolled backwards right in front of us on live TV. And then there was a power glitch. And then all the numbers were different. And you know what? We were just all wrong. We were so wrong. We weren't even close. Really? Enough with the bullshit. We were right. We are right. And we still have the same leader. Again, everything has been cleared out. There's some loose strings we got to do. And I still believe that this is going to be next. In order to dig out those deep roots in the garden, you got to pull it in. But I also know that together, right now, today, we are rebuilding our nation. So how the United States goes the world. I wanted to point this out. There was actually a post on 5/8 that I wanted to pull up, and Somehow that one's disappeared. But as much as the DNS denial of service attacks have broken in, this is still up overall. So we're doing good here. As we saw when Lindell launched his, there was a lot of hate and feedback that it wasn't stable and it wasn't up, and he was at war with all the denial of service attacks and the takedowns and the hacking. Well, this site is really gone through quite a battle as well. And although I couldn't find the 5.8 that referenced us going forward and referencing our current elected leader, as a statement by our leader, the 45th, not the former, but the current of these wonderful United States. So I pulled this up for the following day, just as a reminder to us all. On May 9th of 2021, this is the message we got. And as you look through, we're getting daily messages. You can go 100 and some days without information from the occupant in our white building, but we can get daily updates here. And by the way, the 5.8 was related to how is it that social media took the action that they took. But as we move forward to 5.9, look at this. As a reminder, again, it is now 8.6, but I think this is important to read. Happy Mother's Day to all, everybody. We were all born from mothers. And although biblical teachings have the core of the Trinity that includes the feminine, that's been removed from who we are, our history, our present, and our future. And yet we are all here thanks to our mothers. Happy Mother's Day to all. It will all come back bigger and better and stronger than ever. And then I just love these next 3 words as a gift to us all. Do not worry. How much time do we spend in our day worrying? In fact, the worrying is taken so far that individuals have gone against their own values, broken their own integrity. If you cannot follow by your own words, what truth or foundation do you have? And yet so many have allowed worry to work into their day that they have now injected themselves with a poison. And the ramifications are becoming clear with that. The manipulation driven through fear. And people have actually fought to be first in line. Do you know individuals actually said, it doesn't really matter, I'll just do it so I don't have to put that thing on my face. Really? You're going to inject something in your arm so you don't have to put that thing on your face? Does that make any sense? What about injecting that in your child's arm? Did you actually ask what the studies have been on this? Because they haven't been favorable to animals. And you and I were going to be the test scenario as far as the human population. Did you read the insert that you have to ask for because they don't actually provide it to you, that explains to you all the carcinogens that are included in the direct to the bloodstream? So even if we've gone through this path before and it's been a slow water, right? Hey, we just need a little bit here and a little bit there. And then you've got to take all of these. And then, by the way, this is coming up. So just a slow water. And so people have followed path and injected all the way along until one day your child could not go into school unless before the age of 5, they had had something like 78 different concoctions. Do we remember chemistry? When you mix different things together, it's not always a favorable outcome. And nobody here is saying, stop, don't do that at all. There's been proven benefits and safe benefits, safe pathways. But whoa, wait a minute. As the truth comes out of where this was actually created, the funding, who is benefiting from this and why they're benefiting, why in the world would anybody here allow fear to poison their own body on their own? Again, our most wonderful leader says, do not worry. Here's a statement I wanted to read from yesterday. The biggest E in a long time is one that took place in Ohio's 15th district, and the winner, we're talking about it because they thought that my endorsed candidate would not win. But you know what? He won in a landslide. It would have been headline news everywhere. Instead, virtually no story, none. Rather, they cover the other race instead. And nobody even talked before it went down in flames. Practically nothing is written about this individual, and nobody covered but OAN News. Kudos to OAN for sticking their path. Again, the other side didn't win. They cheated. They cheated big. There are judgments for that beyond you and I. That will be handled. But you and I are on this path here. Together, we are rebuilding our nation. And this statement proves it. We are taking it back legally, without harm to others. We are stepping forward and holding our grounds. I want to make a point here as we round out, because I just want to include the planet here. And we'll discuss off planet on another issue, and I'm not joking about that. But there's 4 core leaders that we're looking to right now that really have been identified from from understanding from our own intuition and looking at the truth around it, that are 100% warriors on this planet standing for truth. They have been propped up as enemies and horrible individuals and tried to erase from this planet. And as we've learned, the term over the target. This is one individual who, based on the information we have today, is working together with 3 others to move us beyond and onto this path of working together, not just our nation, but our planet. There's one from this country that is also working with the other 3. Now, of course, we've got a division, and we've been very, very clear. I am not my government. My voice has not counted in that direction for probably before I was born. There's a division here in this country as well. Same fathers who love their children and same mothers who love their children, fathers who want nothing more than the best for the family. In fact, my child and I watched last night a video of a father in China who he and his wife were in their home, a very, very humble home. In fact, it appeared to have a dirt floor. And while they were in the home, their child, 2 years old, was playing right under the threshold of their doorstep and was removed from that family. And for 24 years, that father gave up his job, gave up his money, spent everything, went through multiple motorbikes, had accidents on him, broke bones. And yet he went through that country for 24 years with flags on his motorcycle, pictures of his own son from 2 years old, as a father was going to get his son back and get his family back. At 24 years, a DNA test proved that he had found his son. There are beautiful, loving, kind people and families on this planet. And that's where our focus needs to be, not the bullshit and manipulation of these governments and people who have risen to power because they allowed their heart to slide a little. They allowed weaknesses to show. They were open to blackmail, and then all of a sudden became the puppets. And as puppets, some agreed, many of our presidents, and some fought and are no longer here. But again, if you can't stand up for who you are, your integrity and the truth that is bigger than yourself, we have nothing. And within this country that has been targeted over the last year and a half, as we move forward to the truth, we will see that yes, it did come out of that lab, but no, that is not where it started. The United States and Canada work together to fund, to research, and to plant this over into this country. Now, the depth of the motivation has not all been laid out. And you can put together the puzzle pieces, it's there. But the corruption of the three main cities on this planet, the Vatican, which again is its own island within Italy. London, again, its own island within England. And DC, Washington, DC, District of Columbia, its own island within the United States. Those three countries, states, nations, isolated manipulators of this planet, mapped out, manipulated, created puppeteers, research funded, manipulating professors as we've seen come forward, funding streams within our taxpayers, all the way through to the most elite, those who are noted as the most wealthy on our planet have been touched by this. In fact, we just heard that on 8/3 there was a recent arrest with a gentleman that starts with the last name G. As we celebrate that this scum is being removed from this planet, this country too has warm, kind, loving people that are highly being persecuted. And yet within this mix, you can choose the one who is one of the four that is standing up with our leaders. Who is the fourth? This gentleman has been named as the fourth. And if we look at the flow of history, we've got right down here, you can see the dates there. This gentleman has been touted as being one of the four leaders that are pulling us forward. So as we say our prayers and we give thanks, we want to honor those who are standing up for us. Saying yes in a society where everybody says no is not easy. Swimming upstream when the rapids are going the other direction is not easy. But we know, and we now have evidence of the number of threats on the lives of these individuals. In fact, we've seen recently with Haiti and Madagascar and Myanmar, and it's not kind to those who take a different path. But we praise and look to those who truly want to stand up and help. And together, we are rebuilding our nation. And we celebrate that the tipping point has now been at least leveled, if not tipped, into our direction. So with that, I want to leave you. This is Digital Insecurity, and the only song that is running through my head right now is the song that we all know, How Great Thou Art. We were given the history book. We were given the rules. We know how this is playing out. And the master chessmen have stepped forward to stand up and protect us. This is Digital Insecurity, August 6th, Global Tipping Point. I laugh that chips fall where they may.